Today, guys, we're going to talk about frost seeding clover, and we're going to talk about a couple different situations where this might be beneficial to you and your property. And we're going to run through this because, as you know, frost seeding is a very popular topic, and it's for good reason. You know, there's a lot of people that enjoy doing this, and it's a good process. And I love frost seeding. I frost seed pretty much every single year, and there's two different ways that you can do this. And number one is if you already have an established perennial clover food plot. You know, you established that, say, last year, and it filled in. It became a very attractive food plot, and it worked out well. And throughout the winter, you know, that clover, in most situations, depending on what part of your country you're in, that clover is going to go dormant. When it goes dormant throughout the season, you know, it's a perennial, so in the spring green up, it's going to green up again. So what I like to do is when you're frost seeding, you know, I frost seed into that existing perennial clover food plot. And what that's going to do is just help fill in space and ensure that you have a long-lasting perennial food plot, because that's the idea of a perennial, is you want it to come back for as many years as possible, and you want it to last, you know, a long time and be full. And you know, the thicker it is, the more it's going to prevent weeds, which is going to cut down on your chemical use and, you know, mowing and things like that. What I like to do is when I get that time of year where the temperatures are getting above, you know, freezing during the daytime, you get those sunny days, then you get temperatures at night that dips below freezing, that ground is going to freeze and thaw, expand and contract. That's going to work those seeds in there. That's the time of year that you want to frost seed, because that's going to ensure that you get good soil to seed contact. Now, there's two different things to consider. Is some people like to use, you know, half the recommended rate, you know, when you're frost seeding, and some guys like to use more. Me personally, I like to use the more seed, especially with clover, because you can't really use too much. You want that clover pot to be thick and lush and, you know, palatable to the deer, but you also want enough seed in there to where it's going to fill in space so you don't have weeds growing. And you got to remember too, when you're frost seeding, not all of that's going to germinate. You have birds that's going to peck the seeds away. You have turkeys, you know, runoff if it's on a hillside, whatever it is. Not all those seeds are going to germinate. So if you're only using a little bit of seed, you know, half the recommended rate per acre, may not have, you know, good results. So bump that up a little bit and you'll have better results. Another situation with frost seeding is if you have an annual food plot from last year. Say you planted a brassica food plot, you know, in an acre, half, whatever it is, you know, it was just brassicas in there. What you could do is this, you know, coming season, frost seeding season, next month or so, we're in January now, February, March, April, good time frames to do that depending on what state you're in. But that brassica food plot's an annual, you planted it last year, go through there and frost seed it. And it's a good way to get a food plot established. A perennial food plot is by frost seeding. You know, I've done this many times and it works very well. But in this situation, I would recommend definitely the full rate, if not more seed into that, because you're going to have, you know, it's an annual or whatever, so you're going to have some weeds that's coming up through there, you know, when spring green up. So you want to use a little bit more seed to help shade out those weeds. And, you know, the clover is going to take a while to establish. So keep in mind, when you're frost seeding a new plot into an annual, you're going to have some weed competition leading up through the spring and summer, and it can be easily controlled with mowing. It gets really bad. I would recommend a herbicide called Imox. It works very well, controls, you know, weed, grasses and broadleafs at the same time. I was able to use that before in the past, and it's one application. Wait a couple weeks, mow it. It turns out beautiful. It's a great herbicide, although I'm not too excited about using herbicides, but sometimes they are needed. I try to shy away from them if possible, but sometimes they are needed. Weeds get out of control, because let's keep in mind, it's a perennial food plot. So you don't want that perennial food plot full of weeds, because you want the most out of your money in that perennial food plot. You want that, you know, you don't want it full of weeds, you want it full of what you actually spent your money on, which is the clover and or chicory, whatever's in there. But frost seeding is a great, powerful tool. It works very well if clover, you know, is suitable, you know, good suitable thing for your property. I wouldn't recommend clover on every property. Some properties I do, some properties I don't. Some properties need a year-round, food source like that, such as a perennial clover food plot, and some properties do not. Also, there are some varieties that you can, annuals that you can frost seed as well. And if you're just establishing a food plot, I will say this, that you can do that in the spring, and you can also do that in the summer, like I mentioned. You could frost seed into an annual, or if you're starting a brand new plot, get those weeds under control in May or April, May, get the seed down in end of May, June, whatever, and then you can establish a clover food plot through the summer. I did that last year. Works very well. Beautiful food plot. So there's many different ways you can do this. I will say make sure you're using a blend that has multiple different varieties. I would say 3, 4, 5 different varieties of clover. Reason being is you never want a single species plant, especially in a clover food plot, because you want clovers in there that's going to grow to different heights. You have different heights in there, you have different maturity levels, and you have different palatability stages. One variety may be palatable now, right? But it may not be palatable 2 months from now. Deer are finicky, on things that what they acquire their taste to, and you want varieties in there so you have something working for you year round, right? So you always have something palatable. If you plant a single variety of something, it may not be palatable for months or weeks or whatever it is, and then all of a sudden they hit it. Well, you want something that's going to be palatable throughout for as many months as a year. So I would highly recommend a blend to you to get that done. Any questions, let me know down below. Let me know if you're frost seeding, or if you have already frost seeded. Some states down in the south, you can probably start frost seeding now. Let me know what you're up to. Give the video a thumbs up. Subscribe if you guys are new. Any questions, drop them down below. I'll help you guys out. I'll see you on the next video. Thanks for watching this video, guys. If you want more information on food plots, soil samples, and habitat management, click this video right here on the screen. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you guys are new.